Good morning. Welcome back to Morning at 10 TV, and today we'll be talking about matters refugee support. Do you know about them? Do you appreciate them? What don't you know about them? And in studio I have people from Window International, their officials. We have the executive director, Mr. James Aram. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. We have Emmanuel Obia, who is the head of programming in Window International. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Uganda actually joined the world in commemorating this great day, the Refugee World Day, for supporting them. And this time round, the big theme was around education and just coming out, Uganda supporting these refugees. It actually happened in Nakivale. Maybe you can give us updates from that. So we can start with you.
Good morning, viewers, and my name is James Aram, as Malas mentioned. Window International Uganda is implementing partner for UNHCR and the government of Uganda in provision of education services for refugees. And as you're aware, education is key to livelihood. Education transforms lives, and is one of the key sectors in refugee management, and we are privileged to be the partner that is in charge of that sector. Of course, there are many others that we work with together. Talking about the Refugee Day that was celebrated in Nakivale, we are privileged to have hosted it in the facilities that we manage, the Nakivale Vocational Training Center. And certainly you must have seen also Nakivale Secondary School, and those were the smart kids that we are supporting in school. So yes, we are in education for refugees, and education is important, just as it is for the nationals.
What were the outcomes of this year's celebration there in Nakivale?
Yeah, you know, this is it's to recognize the rights of refugees that is internationally celebrated.
Correct.
And they are human beings as we are.
Yes.
They deserve our support wherever they find themselves. And this is really to create awareness that amongst us we have people who unfortunately were forced out of their homes with circumstances that are beyond their control, and they need to be treated as human beings. So I think that awareness is basically what we celebrate every year.
Mr. Emmanuel, you are the head of programs.
Yes.
What specific programs does Window International, provide for these refugees, just to ensure that they have equal rights to all of us?
Yes. Window International Uganda, as part of Window globally, focuses mainly on education. And our focus is on providing access to quality education for refugees and people affected by conflict. So in Uganda, our programming is around two main areas. One is about managing education. And we manage education from early childhood learning to primary education, even secondary education. And we also do vocational education in some locations, and as well as tertiary education through our second arm, which is mainly the scholarship provision, but still for the same population, refugees. And it's important for us to know the context, is that with the refugee situation in Uganda, in over 12 different refugee settlements in Southwest, in Midwest, and in West Nile, education as a right and education as one of the fundamentals that every person would need is a core. And so providing education and managing this education on behalf of our partners, UNHCR and OPM, is the biggest program that we manage.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. When they're starting out, I'm sure these are people who have come from their homes.
Yes.
They are afflicted, they're dealing with conflict. Where do you start off with them? Just ensuring that they also understand the need for them to get into education. Because I'm sure these are people who come with their own background, their heart. When they come to a new country, most of them do not, they feel like, okay, let us first settle in before we appreciate the secondary kind of, needs that you're bringing to us. When you're engaging with these communities, just to give them and making them to understand the importance of education, what has the interaction been?
First and foremost, when refugees come in Uganda, they come in different ages.
Correct.
And from different educational backgrounds. And so for the first thing we do is to create that awareness that here in the refugee settlement, say a single settlement, for example, if I would say Kiriandongo or Ajumani or Nakivale, would mention the existence of education facilities available and education service available.
So sensitizing them first.
Sensitize.
Correct.
We create awareness on education. And this is not just done by Window alone, but even other partners, especially UNHCR and OPM and other partners involved in education, create this awareness about education. And so in this way, therefore, the children who are aged 3 to 6 ideally would go to the Early Learning Center, ECDs, Early Childhood Learning Centers, which we manage about 305 of them across the country.
Okay.
And many others are managed by also by other partners involved in education. And so those would go to the Early Childhood Learning Center. And then those who are at the primary school age would then go to the primary schools. Across the country, we manage more than 200 of them, several primary schools in the country. And so in these schools, the teachers will be available and other facilities that would welcome the children to the school in the primary school. But there are those specific categories of children who, because of war, left their country maybe in P2 or P3, but because of the journey and the confusion that war brings and conflict brings, have exceeded the age for being in primary education, but would wish they continue with education. So those are the ones we take through what we call the accelerated education program or accelerated learning program. So this is a catch-up program of which we manage some and other partners manage some, and in this way children are able to catch up with the normal primary system of education and then fit within the education. So the basis is really creating awareness that the facilities and education services are available at the refugee settlements so that the refugees can be able to access these education facilities.
Mr. James, after educating these young ones, so to speak, and even the older ones, like you said, there are others who dropped out and would wish to come back, what is the continuity kind of plan after that? Once they get to tertiary education, they go through that and they excel. Do you then help them to get jobs or start out businesses? What's the strategy?
Just like Emmanuel has said, for a refugee parent, after you've saved their life, the life-saving interventions of shelter, food, and medicine, and water, the parent next question is, what will you do for my children?
Correct.
They certainly are yearning for education, and you need to understand and know that the refugees, the next best thing for them is education, and they're actually yearning for it, and we just overwhelmed at the level of interest in education. So, as you're aware, the Ugandan refugee policy is a very progressive one, where refugees are free to live amongst ourselves and go to the same schools as mine and yours, and access employment for the skills that they have acquired. So we try our best to advocate for them to get employment where possible, to start up businesses for those who go through vocational school. But certainly, because Ugandan policy is very open, you'll find that refugees are living with us, working with us. In our office alone, we have quite a number working with us. We have several of them were employed as teachers. You need to know that we have over 2,800 teachers on our payroll, and a large number of these are actually refugees. And this is what we encourage, because they need to continue with their livelihoods. You know, imagine you were a teacher, you were a doctor in your country, and then you are reduced to begging. You know, so we need to restore the dignity of refugees by giving the opportunity to get employed. And the Uganda government policy is very open, and it's very encouraging to this kind of stuff. They're in businesses, and in Kampala alone we have over 80,000 refugees. I wonder whether you're aware of that.
Yes, yes.
So this is another big settlement called the urban refugee. So if the policy is this open, then the opportunities are equal to both refugees and the nationals.
Yesterday when we were having this discussion, you actually told me that you also have scholarship programs whereby refugees who excel at you know, the primary level, secondary level, actually get the opportunity to go and study abroad. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, as we speak now, we have over 400 students at university level across the universities in Uganda as we speak now. And on average every year we graduate about 50 locally.
Correct.
We have thousands in secondary school, both in and outside the settlements. We have some in vocational schools, But Window, through its own programming, has offered opportunities to refugees to go to study for master's program in the UK. And Window programs, say, like the one in Kenya, do send up to about 60 students to Canada every year. So we have, as we speak now, we have 7 students in the UK. And out of these, 2 of them are refugees. This year alone, we're sending another 8. And again, 2 are refugees. The others are Ugandans affected from the region affected by conflict of northern Uganda, where you're aware there were 20 years of conflict. So we've been doing this for the last several years. And as we speak now, we have several who have returned, and they're contributing to the livelihood of their communities and this country. And some have returned to their country of origin and contributing very positively.
You're in charge of programs. Tell us more about the gap in the funding for all these facilities when it comes to education and ensuring that all of them, no one is left out.
Yeah, for a fact, you have ratios of education that speak for themselves, which are not at some point very pleasing, because you're having teacher-pupil ratios that are in some locations about 1 to 100 or 1 to 90, and in some cases also in some locations classroom ratios of 1 to 150, 1 to 100, 1 to 80.
That means
that means you're seeing congestion in classrooms.
Correct.
That means you're also seeing stretching of the teachers. And then you also have gaps like in the latrine. You find latrines also stretched in that way. And also other facilities therefore in the community would get strained. So the biggest gaps in education as we talk now is infrastructure. If you're talking about infrastructure, you're looking at accommodation for teachers, you're looking at the classroom buildings, you're looking at the latrine facilities, and that is an area where funding for education needs to be channeled if it's in the refugee operations. Then you also have the teachers themselves.
Yes.
And the teachers happen to be a big cost. Mr. James just mentioned that we have over 3,000 staff.
Correct.
And most of these are teachers. And you see, what does that mean? It means continuous recurring budget that is quite big. And so it's a gap. We think we need to reduce the teacher-pupil ratios, we need to reduce the classroom ratios, we need to reduce the latrine ratios. And then if you see congestion in class, then you also know that there's also furniture congestion.
Yes.
Desks. So an average you'd need 1 to 3 per desk, but sometimes you find 1 to 5 in some cases.
1 to 7.
Sometimes 1 to 7 in
some on stones.
Yeah, some on stones.
Wow.
So this tells you the key gaps that exist, despite the fact that we are encouraging and strengthening the program by mobilizing resources from different sources towards this cause, but this still remains a gap that we are hopeful that we need to work towards.
So working towards it, does it then mean that bringing on board more partners, sensitizing the need?
Emmanuel has just talked about primary education.
Correct.
But even as you go up, the gap is even wider. We have under 10% of those who access secondary education, accessing education. Under 1% of those who qualify to go to university are going to university. You have 1.4 million refugees in Uganda. We have all about 370 that we directly support. And of course, there are many other partners, like Emmanuel has mentioned, Save the Children, FinChurch, Plan, World Vision. All these are NRC, all these are focusing on supporting refugees, but the number is still meager. So certainly we are here to appeal to everyone to come to the support and aid of refugee education. UN system, globally, the refugee crisis has been really overstretched, and the funding is going down. So we need to support refugee education, especially at the higher level, because we struggle at the primary level, and then the child will ask you, then what? If I cannot go to secondary education, why should I struggle? Why don't they go on the street and start making a living? And that raises a lot of protection issues, violence, and of course you're not contributing to building peace if you can't educate the children, because they're the ones who are going back to contribute to the conflicts. They are going to target them if they're not in school.
Correct.
So it is very important that children are put in school if we are to end this circle of violence across the region and the world.
I totally agree with you. On the streets, and I'm sure you've also seen them, along the Kampala Road, you've seen a lot of refugees with their mothers and the children as well, you know, begging and borrowing on the roads. As Window International, being the, advocates for education amongst this group of people, have you tried to reach out to such? Because for me, it bothers me, because you can imagine it's a school season. All these children are on the roads begging with their parents, and all these are actually refugees. I'm sure you've seen them. Have you tried to bring on board initiatives whereby we can all include them as well?
Okay, a number of them are Ugandan, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, from Karamoja. And,
some of them, but
yeah,
are refugees as well.
Yeah, and of course there's some refugees as well who thought that life was better in the city, and when they got to the city, they cannot get the kind of support which is available in the camps. Because in the camps, we've set up primary schools, including the UPE schools that the government have set up. But when you come to the city, then you have got to fork. You have got to rent your own house. You've got to buy your own food. Yeah, those circumstances will force them on the street, and that's what we're saying. Education is a very powerful protection tool for children that we should all embrace, and not just for refugees. I mean, the communities where we come from facing similar problems. So together with the government, like I said, that we work together with government and with, of course, the UN Refugee Agency. We should strive to get the children out of the street if we are to build a future for tomorrow. Correct. Yeah, we're all here because we went to school, otherwise we would all, I mean, there would be no future. So that's what we exist for, and we continue to advocate for the right of refugees and all the children of Uganda to go to school.
I'm curious.
We also recognize that it's true that some Ugandan children who are living in the refugee hosting districts, and certain districts like Karamoja, like Ms. James just alluded to, exist in a situation that could be similar to the refugee situation. And that's why also in our education programming, we do not leave the host community children behind. So in primary education, secondary education that we run in the refugee settlements, we include actually the host community children. And this is also in line with the comprehensive refugee response framework, where we don't leave behind the host community, and we need them also to access the same education, because the conditions that affect refugees in the settlements are similar conditions that will affect the children in the host community where the refugees are settled.
Let's speak about the girl child. And this is a great group, I'm sure, that you're handling, especially in your programs, education programs. And we've been having instances whereby most of the girls in the rural areas drop out of school when it's that time of the month. How have you managed to handle that and just ensure that all the refugees, in spite of whatever season they are in the month, do not miss out on school?
One of the things we consider is equity, so that every person accesses education. In the school setting, we make the school environment accessible and friendly to all, to persons with disability and also to the girl child. For the girl child, we have specific interventions that focus on them. One, of course, is the general awareness of education to girls, because it's true that the percentage of girls that access education is lower than boys in some cases. Although in some cases you find the girls are more, but generally the boys seem to be more. So we make facilities at the school friendly to girls. Changing rooms, for example, for girls that require to change sanitary towels, and then senior woman teachers that, for example, address specific needs of the girl child, and then kind of separate the latrine facilities for the girls and the boys, and then situations that would limit a girl from accessing education right from the family. We sit down with the parents and have parents meetings, community dialogues on how children, especially the girl child, should be sent to school. So initiatives like this are aimed specifically at encouraging girls to go to school, and we are seeing fruits. We are seeing more girls going to school in the refugee settlements. So regardless of the time of the month, they are sorted out. They are sorted.
Probably that's not the biggest problem, actually. The cultural beliefs of some of our communities, including the refugee communities, that when a girl is 14, 15, it's already
married off.
Married off. And because we've involved a lot of the community involvement in this, that's changing. More and more girl childs go to school. Actually, our percentages are 53, 47%.
Yes.
That's a good percentage.
Which is quite good. At university, I think it's almost 50-50. So that's changing. But like I said, there are many other partners who are concerned about the child protection that are coming in our aid to help with the WASH facilities in schools and providing the sanitaries. But we also have officials that we have employed that are going in the communities every now and then. They're going to their schools, doing school inspections on a very regular basis, and this is supporting the retention of girl child in school.
That's amazing. There's that issue of sanitation, which I've already talked about, and congratulations if you're handling it perfectly well, because that's a major issue in rural areas where girls drop out of school during that time of the month because they cannot stay in class because of shame and all these other things. They do not have, tools and sanitation, devices that will enable them to stay in class. There's the other issue of feeding them as well when they're in school. And also the government just the other day said, you know what, all the public schools, parents, ensure that you pack food for your children. We're not giving free, food at school. So in the refugee camps, in the schools that you manage, how do you handle that bit of it, ensuring that they are fed when in school? Because I'm sure you have, I've seen that you have feeding program that is quite large and it's well executed. How have you managed to keep it at that?
Yeah, you see, we would like to applaud the Honorable Minister and First Lady, Mama Janet, for spearheading the campaign.
Yes.
I mean, if the child was not in school, wouldn't the child eat at home? I remember when I was going to school, I would be wrapping my sweet potatoes in the leaves of newspaper, and every morning my parents ensured that I had it. So I don't see what has changed. Really, we cannot provide everything. There are attempts that have been made, but it's not sustainable. Even what we are trying to do is not sustainable. What is sustainable is that the parent should support a child to carry something to eat in school. It would have been nice, really, if we had all this, but you heard about the gaps that we're going through. If you add on feeding, there's going to be a big challenge. But certainly when a child is not fed, the child is going to stay in school.
Correct.
By 11 midday, in the afternoon, is just sleeping. So we're encouraging parents to get involved. And we're seeing a lot of change. Our parents are contributing food. And some are even coming and volunteering to cook this food in schools. So we're saying that the ratio of the child at home, bring it in school. So that the lunch is provided at school. And then you share the dinner together. And we're doing the same for secondary. We are now establishing secondary schools and primary schools in the camp. And we are saying that for your child to stay in the boarding school, you either pay the money or you bring the food. Because we already provided teachers, we already provide the facilities. The school is quite cheap, it's very subsidized. So that element of feeding, I think every parent, every Ugandan should encourage our folks in the villages to get involved. We should get involved. What is our role if the UP is already there, the school is already there?
And you can't even give food to your children. It's true. It's totally true. As we come to a close, what are your last remarks? We'll start with you, Mr. James.
I think that we should recognize the importance of education as a human right, as a very fundamental tool for development, tool for peace building, and for sustainability of our societies and communities, and everyone should get involved. We should not say that, oh, as far as refugees are concerned, it's the work of the UN, it is the work of the governments. Even the nationals, it's not a government affair. Let's all put our hands together and support this. I want to call upon the corporate companies to come on board. I see this MTN run every year, running for water, running for. If you could always dedicate one run to educating one refugee at a university,
it will make a huge difference.
A very big difference. You educate one doctor, and that doctor touches 200 or so lives. That's a huge contribution.
Thank you so much, Mr. Emmanuel. One second as we come to a close.
Yes, I want just to thank our partners, UNHCR, the Office of the Prime Minister, ECHO, Education Cannot Wait Initiative, and all the other partners that are involved in education. Through their support, we're able to put over 200,000 refugees in school,
yes.
and I think that is important. That's very helpful. We think that the future of refugees back in their countries is bright with education here, because if a refugee is in this country and they don't access education, it means that the future of the countries where they come from
Correct.
is not bright at all.
Yes.
So by this, we think that we're contributing towards a bigger picture, the future of the countries where the refugees come from, as well as the livelihood for the refugees themselves.
Thank you so much.
And we think that we commit ourselves
yes.
to still move forward to providing education for refugees, and that's our commitment.
At NTV, we'd like to applaud you for the great work that you're doing. We truly hope that more partners come on board to ensure that we educate every single young person in the country, regardless of where they're coming from, where they are, who they are. It's very important. Education is key. That has been the conversation. Keep it Morning at NTV.